Welcome to On Point with Patrick Omotage. You're watching this on Vineyard Television here in Houston. And this week, I'm going to talk about the letter. I'm sure most of you are wondering what letter. Well, there's a letter that's been circulating in Nigeria and that everybody is kind of talking about. I'm also going to talk about the new idea of cattle ranches in Nigeria. And if I have time, I would also talk about the immigration issue or the immigration idea that has been put forward by President Trump and how it either affects us positively or negatively as immigrants here in America. So let me again welcome you all to On Point with Patrick Omotage. My Twitter handle, as usual, is PJ Osagi. I'd love you guys to reach me, talk to me, send me tweets or retweet what I have to say on issues like this. But I'm going to take a break. When I come back, I'm going to talk about that letter, the letter written by a former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo. I mean, it is becoming a habit of his to write an open letter to a sitting president. So I'm going to take this very quick break. When I come back, I'll delve into the letter. See you soon. Welcome back. I did say that I'm going to talk about a letter. This letter was written by former President Olusegun Obasanjo. This is the second time that he's writing an open letter to a current and sitting president. When he wrote one many years back to President Jonathan, it really signaled the end for Jonathan. Because after the letter, he came out strongly, just not against Jonathan, but against his own party, a party which he had run on and had served 2 terms in office. This time, Obasanjo has written another letter, a letter to President Buhari, a former general just like himself. I'm not going to bore you with the details or the intimates of this letter. But here is the general idea of what Obasanjo is saying in his letter. That President Buhari has failed us this past 2.5, going to 3 years in office. That the promises he has made, he hasn't been able to carry them out. That the country hasn't moved forward. That we're stagnated. That nothing is really working. And he's not saying that Buhari is a bad man. All he's saying is that please don't run for re-election. Don't ask for a second term. 4 years is good enough for you. That is really the premise of Obasanjo's letter. Now, how has this letter now been taken by Nigerians generally? Of course, those that love Buhari have all gone out and attacked Obasanjo. Those that hate Buhari say, hey, this is a letter that is supposed to bring all of us to our senses and see that the country isn't working. Remember, Obasanjo has done it before. He wrote a letter to Jonathan. I think about 19 pages at that time. And like I said, it was the beginning of the end for Jonathan. Because he really lashed out at Jonathan and what Jonathan and his people were doing to the country. The letter is pretty similar. This present letter to Buhari is pretty similar. The huge difference this time is that he's not switching parties. He's not asking the APC to go away like he said he did with Jonathan, that he actually tore his own PDP card. The difference this time is that Obasanjo is actually making a suggestion that maybe he can lead a new revolution, a new group of people that might be able to take over Nigeria politically, not in the form of a military coup, but politically, going through the same political process of an election. I don't really know about Obasanjo's thoughts about, how this can be done. But I'm going to say one thing. Obasanjo usually really bears his mind. There's some of us that think that Obasanjo has been good and not good for Nigeria. I know that people will think you're sitting on the fence in that way. But that's not true. What I'm going to do here, before I address the content really of before I give points on what Obasanjo's letter says, let me say a little bit about Obasanjo. I think he had the greatest chance in Nigerian history to lead us out of our issues, our major issues. I mean, no, every country will continue to have problems, but you must set some very good pathways for us to continue to succeed. And I think Obasanjo did a little bit of that. There's few industries in Nigeria today that, because of it all happened during the Obasanjo period, his 8 years in office as a civilian president. Like the telecoms industry, it did very well under Obasanjo, and it has really transformed, or it is still transforming Nigeria as a country. But there's so many other things that Obasanjo couldn't even fix, or even put us in the right pathway. We still don't have power, electrical power, constantly in that country. And Obasanjo's government, that was one of their pillars, one of the things he promised us that he was going to do. He didn't succeed. It looks as if it's even worse because he did spend an awful lot of money. So there's good things that Obasanjo did. But I, personally, and here's the point I want to make on the former President Obasanjo, is that with all what he had, he made what I consider really an unforgivable play. And that was his attempt to scuttle a fledgling democracy in Nigeria by attempting to get a third term in office. There was absolutely no need for him to do that. 8 years was just fine. He had tried. But that play, that idea to get a third term, to me, destroyed everything that he had ever done. I know people say, whoa, I'm telling you, the idea that he would want a third term in office, to change our constitution, to me, that was the worst thing any good leader would do. I know leaders have something in them, to get to that kind of a position. There's almost some kind of a cockiness about their thinking. He actually believed that he was the best person to continue to lead Nigeria. But that's not what our constitution says. You were given two terms for 4 years, and you had done it. There was no need to try to do that. But that's the point I want to make on him. I'm going to take another quick break. When I come back, I will now address the issue of Buhari, whether he needs a second term, or whether he should ask the people of Nigeria for a second term in office. I'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. You're watching On Point with Patrick Omosage. My Twitter handle again is PJ Osage. I'd love to hear from you. I mean, we're really talking on topics that most Nigerians, or most Africans, or most immigrants, black immigrants out here should be interested in. Right now, I'm talking about a situation where former President Obasanjo has written a letter, an open letter, to the current Nigerian President Buhari, basically suggesting to him that he shouldn't run for a second term, or shouldn't offer himself up for a second term. And I've addressed the issue of Obasanjo. I mean, I think he has spoiled his own name. He's not in a position to do that because, like I said, his biggest flaw was his attempt to try to scuttle our pledging democracy and change our constitution for him to get the third term in office. That's a no-no. I mean, in this day and age, you do what your constitution says and you move on. I mean, if the country wants to change the constitution, that's fine, but he had no business trying to do that. But now, let me address the issue of Buhari and his second term. I think President Buhari came to power at a very difficult time in Nigeria, without any doubt. I mean, the oil prices were coming down. I mean, we had spent an awful lot of money and we couldn't really find where that money was going into. But he came into power really for two key reasons. One was the economy, and the second was security. I mean, we just had an awful lot of the Boko Haram crisis. I mean, the seizing and kidnapping of those young ladies in the northern part of the country, and nobody knew where they were. We didn't even have an idea. One of Jonathan's biggest mistakes was not acknowledging that situation very quickly and not really paying attention to it. And so Buhari came to power really on two strong bases. The country's economy was, really going down the drain, and then the security in the country was woeful. I mean, the kidnappings aside, the killing of people by suicide bombers and all that. I mean, it's really terrible. And one of the selling points for General Buhari was that, look, I'm a former general. I have been to wars. I've been to the American War College. I know about this. And I think I would have the goodwill from around the world to build some kind of a coalition to fight Boko Haram and to actually ease the problem, to, settle down the security issues in Nigeria. And obviously I have the clout, the goodwill from all over the world, and I should be able to raise money. I should be able to bring companies into the country, or, bring foreign money into the country to help us build our economy. Because that's really what Nigeria needs. Nigeria really doesn't have the internal money to really have a huge economy. When you look at a lot of the businesses that are thriving in Nigeria, either the oil business or the telecoms business, these are all foreign investments for the most part that are in that country doing what they can do. So those were the two strong things by Buhari coming to power. Now let's look at it. Has it worked? Let's take security for instance. Yes, there's been some kind of a law in the issues of Boko Haram. There's not much of it in the news. You still a few killings here and there. I actually thought, the Boko Haram thing had been solved, especially when they had a negotiation and returned some of the young ladies that were kidnapped almost 3 years ago. Because it was such a big story that the majority of them had been returned. Now, if you can negotiate with them to bring back the girls that we've always wanted back, I thought it was all done. But to my surprise, in the last 1 month, the Buhari government has actually asked and has gotten approval from the state governors to withdraw $1 billion. To do what? They say to fight Boko Haram. I'm confused because I thought it was over. The government actually had said in a lot of other places that they had defeated Boko Haram. And now they had asked for $1 billion, not $1 billion naira, $1 billion to fight Boko Haram. That has shocked me. Now, of course, there are conspiracy theorists that are saying that this is election money that they're trying to put aside. I mean, we do that all the time in Nigeria. I don't know. I'm not part of them. But it just doesn't sound right that you're now asking for $1 billion to fight a fight that you say you've won. To fight people that you claim you have defeated. I really don't get it. But that aside, what are all the other security challenges that have really popped up in the last couple of years? The Fulani headsmen. Yes, I mean, I know that we've been parading cows all over Nigeria ever since I was born. It used to amaze me even as a kid that you just see a bunch of cows just being beaten or shooed down the highway of a major street in Lagos. And I used to wonder, where are they going? My idea was that they were going to where they were going to be killed. I mean, they were going to a butcher's tent or knife or whatever, and then turn into red meat for us to eat. But all of a sudden, this herding of cows around the country has become a huge problem. It has led to serious killings all around the country. It seems as if there's no state that hasn't experienced this. Why is this happening? What is going on? And that is something that I would think that the government, because look, we're talking about a very, very, very little number of people that are doing this. Why this hasn't been stopped is something that really baffles my mind. Now, here's the point I want to make on that. We have a few Fulani herdsmen, that's what everybody has labeled them as, moving around the country and sacking entire villages and killing and maiming people, all in the name of looking for food for their cattle. I find that hard to believe. I know that the people probably don't want anybody coming into their land and taking over their land to feed their cattle when this is their farm. But why has this been something that all of a sudden has blown up? Let me make my point very clear here. There's something underlying in this particular behavior or this particular situation at this time. I don't know what it is, but there's got to be something. Things just don't happen out of the blue. These Fulani guys, our headsmen, have been moving around the country for years. They've been shooing the cows up and down the south and the east, the Midwest, for years. Why is it all of a sudden there's a whole load of killing attached to it? We hear the stories that they might be foreigners. Yeah, but why would foreigners come in with cows and then try to kill our people? And that the government just stands back and lets it happen over and over and over again. This is pretty confusing. So those are two huge security issues that I think Buhari hasn't dealt with very well. As for the economy, personally, I think he's been too absent to really take charge of the Nigerian economy. The Nigerian economy needs to be modernized. There's nobody that I don't think anybody should even have an argument about that. But you need a president that I find it hard to say, but you need a president that's actually also pretty modern. He doesn't have to have gone to London London School of Economics. But it's someone that we need, someone that at least should be able to get around the world and explain exactly why he needs foreign money into this country. And I don't think President Buhari, for whatever reason, is capable of doing that. And I think he's been too absent in the last 3 years since he's been in power to really be comfortable doing that. Because he can actually, and when I use the word absent, I don't think it's news to anybody listening to me, watching me, or that has ever followed Nigerian press or news coming out of Nigeria for the last 3 years, that he's been generally absent because we understand he's not felt very well. I mean, he's been, in the last 6 months, he's obviously been very stable. But almost half of last year, he was not around in the country. If there's anything anybody knows about economics, if you're the leader, the father, the breadwinner of your house, and you're in charge of economics in your house, pray that you don't fall sick. Because it will have a tremendous effect on how things develop money-wise in your family. I mean, we've had a guy that has not been very much around because, they've never told us, that, what sickness is, he ails him and all that. I mean, and that's not my business. If he doesn't want to reveal it, that's fine. But we know he hasn't been around because that couldn't be hidden from us. And I think that has played a huge problem in the development of our system, of our economic system. And that has led to, what we hear all the time, that there's become an inner caucus that works with him, that makes tremendous decisions. And look, everybody knows, those kind of decisions are going to be made to the benefit of that group. I'll make this one big point. Personally, I would hope that President Buhari will not ask for a second term. I believe the APC should still be able to find a good candidate, a younger candidate, a more, I don't want to say a better person, because that's not going to be fair to Buhari, but someone a little bit more into what this country needs at this time. And I think age will play a good role in it. I'm not big on what people call education. I don't care whether he went to school and all that, but he must have a profile that tells us he's capable of dealing with the economic situation that we have in the country today. And that kind of profile is out there. You either need an ex-governor that has done well in his state. I know people throw names around and all that, but that's what I hope. And I think the APC can still do that, because I know there's going to still be a fight between the APC and the PDP. But I think Buhari should not seek re-election. That's my point. I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, I talked about the Fulani herdsmen, and I've talked about this new idea from the Buhari government, the establishment of what they call cattle ranches. And the state governors or the state governments are to provide a whole load of land for us to build cattle ranches, so we don't have this invasion of the Fulani herdsmen into communities around the country. It's going to be interesting, or I'm going to give you my own point on what I see about cattle ranching in Nigeria. A quick break, and I'll be right back. You're still watching On Point with Patrick Omalsage. Where do we come up with silly ideas like government-owned or government-subsidized cattle ranches? Because it's got to be government subsidized. Once government is asking for land from state, federal government is asking for land from state governors or governments to provide this. It's going to be subsidized. That's government land. Or government is going to have to buy the land from someone. Now, the headsmen, the Fulani headsmen, or the people that own cows in Nigeria, is it a government business? And who do they sell to? They sell to us for money. I think this is another silly idea that the government has come up with. I know it will not be as bad as subsidizing fuel on the long run, but for heaven's sake, why do we try to subsidize everything? The government should solve the security problem with the herdsmen or the cattle ranchers or the guys that own cattle that move their cows all over the whole place. But we don't need government interference on how they run their business. If they kill people, they should be arrested and jailed. Not trying to baby them into compounds where government now provides grass for them, for their cows to eat. I think it's almost a ridiculous idea. I actually call it a silly idea. We shouldn't be doing stuff like this. This is not how to solve a problem. We keep doing things that how long are we going to do this? Because the government has no business in taking care of cows. There are 180 million Nigerians that need government subsidy, if you want to put it that way. Not cows, and not people that what's the value of the ranching business in Nigeria? That all of a sudden will want to get into it. What's the value? We don't even make corned beef in Nigeria. We don't. We don't export cows. All the corned beef we eat in Nigeria comes from Argentina, one of the largest producers of beef from cows. So I think this is a silly idea. What the government should do is stop running away from the security issues attached with this group, these ranchers, and solve that problem. How we solve any law enforcement issue. If someone kills someone, deal with it through the law. Not through these sideshows about we need ranches for them to sit in. It's almost crazy to think about it. The Fulani people have always been nomadic. Now all of a sudden we think that government can provide a compound for them to stay in, and then they'll stay in there. They're going to eat all the grass up, and then they'll need to move. I went to school in Illinois, which is a farm area in America here. And I was able to learn that those that have this kind of farms for cows and sheep and all that, and during the winter there's no grass on the ground. But they've collected their grass over the summer, over the spring and the summer. Their bales, you see these huge bales of grass that they open up and spread out in the winter for their cattle to eat. That's how they survive. But that's not done by government. That's done by the individual farmer. I think this is a silly idea. I think the government should scrap it. Let's not get into things that are not going to solve the major issues. That's my point on that. Before I go, I'm going to touch on something that a lot of us really are concerned about, and that is immigration, both legal and illegal. Most of us want to bring family, we have kids, that are both legal and illegal here. The new proposal that's on the table by the present government of President Trump might not be the most admired. He might not be the most admired president in Nigeria, but at least in almost the 35 years that I've hung around America, this is the first time in a very long time that someone has actually put something on the table for discussion. And if, as most of us claim, it's about the children, because when people ask, do you live in America? I say, look, hey, it's about my children's future. I always say that I could have enjoyed living in Nigeria if I never got married, if I never thought about having children. But I always thought my children needed a really good future, which Personally, I always believe that wasn't there in Nigeria. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there are people that do well in Nigeria. Now, the point on this is that just like President Obama had a program for children that were brought here not through their own wishes, President Trump has also said, hey, we would allow them stay and actually would have a pathway to become citizens. That's a first good step. I have always said, and I say this to a lot of my friends, let's see how things work. Everything has become too political in America. This is an issue that I think both sides really do not want to solve. Both sides don't want to solve it, Republicans and Democrats. It's an issue they like on the table because you can beat the other guy with it. And that's what they're trying to do again. But I think there's a very good first step on the table. And that's my point for the week. I'll see you all here next week, same time, same place. This has been On Point with Patrick Omosagie.